Hi there, this is Allison with Let's Go Travel Tips. Today I want to talk to you about a few things I think you need to consider when you're thinking about whether or not you should cancel a cruise that you have got scheduled in the next little bit. So the time frame that I'm going to talk to you about has to do with Princess because I'm very familiar with that. But the things that you need to consider really apply across all the cruise lines. And so keep that in mind no matter who you're cruising on. And so first of all, if you are cruising on Princess, you need to decide by the time that you're 30 days away from cruise day if you want to cancel your cruise or not. Because once you are within that 30-day window, then you will not get your money back unless you test positive for COVID. And so whenever we book a cruise, first of all, we always check and see what the cancellation policy is for the cruise that we're going on. And that's what Princess's policy is right now. And so when we booked our most recent cruise that was on the Majestic Princess to Alaska, it departed on August 15th. And so we marked on our calendar the date July 12th to decide what we were going to do because it gave us a couple of days of wiggle room, and we knew that by then we needed to decide so that we could cancel it if we felt like that was the best thing. And so we considered a few things, and first of all, I was worried about how safe it would be. And so for quite a while, Princess has been saying that there has to be at least 95% of the crew vaccinated and 95% of the passengers vaccinated. And now with the update the other day, they just say that all passengers must have be completely vaccinated. And that means, you know, that you've received your second dose at least 14 days before sailing. And so with that knowledge, I thought that it was pretty safe. We even talked to our children about it, and they're all grown up. They're very well educated, and they're actually very smart, and they all agreed that that would be safe. They said, you know what, it's safer than going to the grocery store, it's safer than you running in Walmart, so you can go ahead and go based on safety. And so we decided that we were okay with that. So then another thing that we thought about is you know what could they maybe change or require of us if the COVID cases get any worse? Because when we booked this cruise, we booked it back in May, and the COVID numbers were much different then because the Delta variant hadn't spread so much. But by the time we were making this decision in July, there were a lot more COVID cases. And so we had to really think about what else might change in light of that knowledge. And so we actually, in talking about it, we thought, you know what, maybe they are going to require testing before you can get on the ship. Maybe they will require masks. Those were the two main things that we could think of. And sure enough, at the beginning of August, they put out those protocols. And so when they announced that we had to get the proof of a negative COVID test before we could embark, and also that we would need to be wearing a mask indoors on the ship, it was okay because that was all right with us. We had already made that choice. And so be thinking about those things, and then also anything else that you think could happen that you need to make sure that you are okay with. Another thing that we thought about is like what would be different on the cruise than on all the other cruises that we have been on before. And so in thinking about that, it was, you know, the obvious thing of in the buffet, they're going to serve you the food. And I actually really like that. I hope that they stay that way because then everybody doesn't touch everybody else's food. And that's bothered me always anyway, so that's okay. Another thing that we thought about was maybe there's going to be less dancing. And sure enough, on our cruise, there were, you know, sometimes there were a few couples dancing in the piazza, and there were some dancing in the nightclubs that we saw, but it wasn't packed like it was on cruises that we've been on before. There were none of the big dance parties, nothing like that. And so there also was no karaoke, and I hadn't really thought about that before, but it makes perfect sense because who wants to wear a mask when you're doing karaoke? And it would make a bunch of people congregate indoors. And so there just wasn't that. On our cruise with the dancing, just a side note is you will see when you look at our videos about the Princess Patters, there was Zumba classes, but there were none, you know, like how they usually like have the line dancing class and some of the other kinds of dance classes. There were none of those. And I'm sure those will be back when we're back to normal again. So anyway, we thought about those things and we decided that we were okay, that we would still like to go. To Alaska, there you know, there are so many beautiful places to see that it, you know, is outside. On the way there, there's beautiful sights to see. And then all the excursions that you take there virtually are, you know, seeing the great outdoors and being outdoors. So we decided that we would still really like to go. And it's also very nice to get away. It's not so bad that the internet slows down a little bit the further north you go, and that sometimes you don't have phone service. It's kind of nice. It just gives you the chance to relax a little bit more that you generally don't get at home. And so that's why we decided to go ahead and go. We considered all of these things. We talked about it, we prayed about it, and we got arrived at the conclusion together that we would just go ahead and go. And so after that is when we let people know that we were going to go ahead and go. And so the only other thing that I can think of that I would consider now a lot is how many more COVID cases there are. So we know that it seems that no matter what we do, there are COVID cases are going to pop up. The cruise ships generally don't announce to the public. I have never heard an announcement from Princess how many COVID cases they have, and neither do the other cruise lines. There's been the odd, you know, little report, like when, you know, like I think it was 26 crew members on a Carnival ship had COVID, just things like that. A few headlines here and there, but as a general rule, they're not announcing it. It is interesting to know, though, that every single day the cruise lines have to report to the CDC how many COVID cases they have. And so they are very well managed, and I don't know any other industry in this whole wide world that is so careful and has to report so much about the COVID cases they get. The airlines don't have to do that. These all-inclusive resorts, hotels, no one else has to do that. So I really think that it helps the cruise lines. I know that they are so much more fastidious and careful about making sure that the passengers are safe, and they do everything they can to mitigate the spread. And so also I wanted to say, you know, if you just Google like CDC ship color status, it brings you to the page on the CDC's website that it lists all of the ships that are currently listed and trying to get back into cruising with these cruise ships. The ones that aren't supposed to sail soon aren't on there, but a whole lot of them on there are all of the ones that still are crew only. And what it does is it color codes them according to like how many cases they have. So the green ones, which those are only the ones with only crew, have no COVID cases. And then there are some ships that are color coded orange, and that means that they have reported some cases, but they have not hit the threshold for the CDC to investigate or monitor them. And then almost all the cruise ships that are sailing with passengers very much are yellow status. I know the Majestic Princess has been that since the first week it sailed, because I've been keeping an eye on it. And so it just says that, you know, that the CDC is investigated and they're still monitoring the ship, and that's what it says for most of the other cruise ships that are sailing with passengers. And so they are being very careful. It doesn't tell you the number. It doesn't tell you what the number is for the threshold to be investigated. But what it does tell me is that no matter how careful we are, there are going to be COVID cases. And so really that is something we have to decide if we are really worried about or if we feel okay about it. And there's really not a right or wrong answer to that. It's just what you feel comfortable with yourself. And so that is just a choice you're going to have to make, but I think it's really important to think about it. Because with all of these things, you have to think about it, because cruising is supposed to be fun. It's not supposed to be stressful. It's not supposed to make us ticked when they say that we have to wear a mask. It is supposed to be a happy experience. And so think of these things, and if you have a cruise that is scheduled more than 30 days out and you aren't comfortable with that, or considering that maybe you will have to be tested more frequently because we've got more COVID tests on board, anything like that, then you should just go ahead and move your cruise out. You can either take your credit as a future cruise credit. I know that I looked at all of the cruise lines and they are offering future cruise credit or a refund. They are really good about that. And so you can just schedule your cruise when you feel comfortable going. And if you have a cruise that is booked within 30 days and the closer you get to going, you know, you're worried about if they're keeping the ship clean, or you're worried about if people are going to be really contagious, you know, just think about it a lot, pray about it, decide what you should do about it. But if you feel safe going, which I feel safe going, that's not an issue with me, just go and look for the good. And even if you think, you know, it's not going to be as good because I have to wear a mask, it's okay. You get to go and just look for the good. And I don't mean to be someone that never sees the bad. I do. I see a lot of bad. I see a lot of sadness. But if you look for the good, you're more apt to find the good. And so I just wanted you to think about these things as you're trying to decide what to do with your cruises. I get a lot of comments and messages about what it's really like to sail. It really is very, very nice. It's wonderful, actually. And so I think that if you feel safe going, you should go. And so if you have any questions or any other thoughts about that, just put them in the comments below. I will go ahead and do my best to answer as quick as we can. We really do appreciate you spending some time with us. Thank you. And if you have enjoyed this video and appreciate our content, will you please consider subscribing to our videos? We would really appreciate your help in building our channel. And if this video has helped you with anything or given you any insight or anything to think about, will you please consider giving us a thumbs up for this video? That helps our channel as well. I will be talking to you again soon. You all take really good care. God bless you. Love you. Bye-bye.